I have highlighted portions here. We'll start with this part. That's why I recommend everybody read before we get into the meetings because I skip around. Let's see. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So there's a ton of stuff in here that I'm not reading that may be super relevant to you. I just pick out some of the juicy bits, but there are like supporting arguments. There's like, he cites studies. He cites a bunch of different things or experiences, like anecdotals from other people that have succeeded. Like I kind of skip those. I try to get into some of the meat, the little golden nuggets within the chapters. And that's what we're really discussing, the concepts. But highly recommend everybody get it. It's this one. Okay. Psychocybernetics, Maxwell Malt. All right. So he has a heading here that says everyone has personality locked up within him. Every human being has the mysterious something we call personality. When we say that a person has good personality, what we're really mean is that he has freed and released the creative potential within him and is able to express his real self. Poor personality and inhibited personality are one and the same. The person with a poor personality does not express the creative self within. He's restrained it, handcuffed it, locked it up, and thrown away the key. The word inhibit literally means to stop, prevent, prohibit, restrain. The inhibited personality has imposed a restraint on the expression of the real self. For one reason or another, he's afraid to express himself, afraid to be himself, and has locked up his real self within an inner prison. The symptoms of inhibition are many and varied. Shyness, timid, self-consciousness, hostility, feelings of excessive guilt, insomnia, nervousness, irritability, inability to get along with others. Frustration is characteristic of practically every area and activity of the inhibited personality. His real and basic frustration is his failure to be himself and his failure to adequately express himself. But this basic frustration is likely to color and overflow into all that he does. So you're living a lie, pretty much, when you inhibit yourself like this. And he says, excessive negative feedback is the key to inhibition. Says the science of cybernetics gives us a new insight into the inhibited personality and shows us the way toward disinhibition, freedom, and how to release our spirits from the self-imposed prisons. Negative feedback is a servo mechanism, is equivalent to criticism. Negative feedback says, in effect, you are wrong, you are off course. You need to take corrective action to get back on the beam. The purpose of negative feedback, however, is to modify response and change the course of forward action, not to stop it altogether. If negative feedback is working properly, a missile or a torpedo reacts to criticism just enough to correct course and keeps going forward toward the target. This course will be, as we have previously explained, a series of zigzags. However, if the mechanism is too sensitive to negative feedback, this servo mechanism overcorrects. Instead of progressing toward the target, it will perform exaggerated lateral zigzags or stop forward progress altogether. And it says here, our own built-in servo mechanism works in the same way. And I highlighted this sentence specifically. We must have negative feedback in order to operate purposefully, in order to steer our way or be guided to a goal. So the reason I highlighted this one for obvious reasons right there, we must have negative feedback. Okay, so many guys, when they have goals or things that they're trying to achieve in life, whatever it is that you're doing, a lot of men are afraid of negative feedback, which stems from childhood. Again, being beat down by parents, friends, being made fun of by colleagues, whatever it is. Okay, it's the insecurities that inhibit who you should really be. Drill this in your head as you're trying to achieve whatever goal you have set forth. You have to get negative feedback in order to course correct and make sure you're going the right way. It's not a negative. It's simply keeping you on the path, straight and narrow. That's all negative feedback is. Again, this is one of those I guess you call it a mind fuck, right? It's like a hack that you have to do on your brain. You have to repurpose what failure is. You have to repurpose what negative feedback is. You have to change your relationship with these things so you don't see them as bad. It's merely a part of the progress. The process itself requires that you have negative feedback in order to succeed. There is no goal chasing. There's no, going after a higher standard of yourself without negative feedback along the way. Think about going to the gym and lifting, and then you put on a weight that's too much, and the negative feedback is you can't get it up. You can't lift more than the 6 reps allotted, or God knows what, you may get injured, whatever. That's negative feedback telling you to course correct and continue moving forward. It doesn't tell you stop going to the gym. If you failed benching 225, that doesn't mean you stop going to the gym forever. That just means you can't bench 225 yet, and that you need to start a little lighter and build yourself up. Negative feedback, it's the same thing in every other aspect of life. We accept it in the gym as men when we're working out. We look at a guy and we go, I can't lift that much, but I will eventually if I keep working at it. How come you don't do that with business? How come you don't do that with yourself when you're attempting something, right? Why don't you speak to yourself in this manner? Like if what I'm doing fails in some way or I have a negative feedback event, it doesn't mean that I should stop altogether. It just simply means that I'm not where I need to be just yet and I need to course correct to get there. And that's it. You don't cry yourself after trying to attempt 225. Most guys won't attempt 225. That's just way too much weight. And they know they're not ready yet, but they will be one day. So just because you get negative feedback on a business or, something entrepreneurial or, personal development of any kind doesn't mean that you stop it altogether. Okay. There's a couple other chapters, but it goes into consciousness or conscious self-criticism makes you do worse. It says writing in the British scientific journal Nature, Dr. E. Colin Cherry stated his belief that stuttering was caused by excessive monitoring. And pay attention to this because this is how crazy your brain is. So it says, to test his theory, he equipped 25 severe stutterers with headphones through which a loud tone drowned out the sound of their own voices. When they were asked to read aloud from a prepared text under these conditions, which eliminated self-criticism, the improvement was remarkable. Another group of severe stutterers was trained in shadow talk to follow as closely as possible, an attempt to talk with a person reading from a text or a voice on radio or TV. After brief practice, the stutterers learned to shadow talk easily, and most of them were able to speak normally and correctly under these conditions, which obviated advanced criticism and literally forced them to speak spontaneously or synchronize speaking and correcting. Additional practice in shadow talk enables the stutterers to learn how to speak correctly at all times. It says when excessive negative feedback or self-criticism was eliminated, inhibition disappeared and performance improved. When there was no time to worry or too much carefulness in advance, expression immediately improved. This gives a valuable clue as to how we may disinhibit or release a locked up personality and improve performance in other areas. So boy, oh boy, when I say the greatest limiter is in between your ears, I mean it. How many people are sitting on God's gift? How many people here have a hidden talent that they know they're probably good at, but too afraid? They're inhibiting themselves from letting it out, from letting the rest of the world see it. Dude, people go to their graves with hidden talents and they're afraid to show everybody. Fear of ridicule, fear of being judged, just all sorts of things that are not true. It's just the insecurity within them has stopped them from blossoming into the world. Imagine all the greatness that lies in 6 feet underground. All the graves, man. All the potential, all that human potential just wasted. We here have an opportunity. We're alive still, and we have that potential within us. Everyone here is gifted in something. You just might not know it yet. You may not have done enough things to discover your gift. Most people live these creatures of habit, I guess you could call them. These linear lives where they do the same kind of thing over and over and over again, and they don't go out of their comfort zone. They don't try new things, try to experience new things. I like what I like and I'll do what I want to do. And they stay in that box forever until their grave. Okay. Creatures of habit. People find out what it is that they're interested in, what they like, and they stay in there forever. It's true. There's a lot of them. Most people are probably like this. Very few people will go out on the limb and try something new, aren't afraid to look stupid or like a newbie. Will be humiliated, will feel incompetent, but yet the excitement of that new thing is what pushes them forward. Okay. They don't have the inhibiting personality within them. The negative feedback is okay. It's simply them getting better at trying something new, as opposed to someone else or most other people deathly afraid of starting something new for a fear of looking like a fool. Okay. So there's a lot of people, dude, including every single one in this room. I'm telling you, you guys are good at something. A lot of you probably have no idea what it is because you haven't stepped out of your comfort zone enough times to stumble upon what it is you're talented at. That's like the brutal truth in the world. You just have to do so much different shit, so many new things, hobbies to try out, random stuff until you see like, oh, what the hell's going on here? Like I'm picking this up so naturally. This is what you'll get this feeling of like, this is what I was meant to do. Have you had that moment in your life? Like think quietly, ask yourself, like, was there ever a moment in my life where I've tried something, I've done something, attempted something, right, that I don't normally do, and it just clicked with me like, this is what I was meant to do. This is it. This feels different. If you haven't had that yet, then you haven't branched out enough times to maybe stumble upon your gift. Some people are super lucky, man. These are the people that we call truly lucky. It's the ones that find their gift, their calling is what we call it, in life early. They're like kids. you get that one kid that plays doctor with his friends and it just clicks in his mind. I want to be a physician when I grow up. I'm going to be the best surgeon in the world. I'm going to do. You hear the crazy stories about those uber successful people and they're like, I knew exactly what I want to do when I was like 6 years old. It just clicked in my head. And then they just on a linear path chased that. They were so fortunate and lucky to find that stuff out. Bill Gates is one of them. Bill Gates' dad, they came from money, but bought him a computer when he was super young before anybody even knew shit about computers. And the dude fell in love with programming and all that shit. Ends up starting Microsoft, all that shit, changes his life. He's one of the richest people in the world, yada, yada, yada. Why? Simply because he found his calling early. That was a gift. Imagine Bill Gates never getting that gift of a computer from his father. What would that man be doing right now? Would he even be good at computers? Or would he be like typical boomer, like couldn't even open an email kind of shit, If he
wouldn't even be having this chat.
Exactly. Probably. Yeah. Who knows what the landscape would look like for computing? But that man was gifted a computer as a young child and ran with it. Crazy, isn't it? And then we have here, it says, what others think creates inhibition. It says, when you become too consciously concerned about what others think, when you become too careful to consciously try to please other people, when you become too sensitive to the real or fancy disapproval of other people, then you have excessive negative feedback, inhibition, and poor performance. Whenever you constantly and consciously monitor your every act, word, or mannerism, again, you become inhibited and self-conscious. You become too careful to make a good impression, and in so doing, choke off, restrain, inhibit your creative self, and end up making a rather poor impression. The way to make a good impression on other people is never consciously try to make a good impression on them. Never act or fail to act purely for consciously contrived effect. Never, quote, wonder consciously what the other person is thinking of you, how he is judging you. And then it has a section here that says how a salesman cured self-consciousness. And I love this because it's a neat little trick that maybe we could all employ in our personal lives. And it says James T. Mangan, the famous salesman, best-selling author, and lecturer, said that when he first left home, he was painfully self-conscious, especially when eating in the dining room of a ritzy or high-class hotel. As he walked through the dining room, he felt every eye was upon him, judging him, critical of him. He was painfully conscious of his every movement, motion, and act, the way he walked, the way he sat down, his table manners, the way he ate his food. And all these actions seemed stiff and awkward. Why was he so ill at ease? He knew he had good table manners and knew enough social etiquette to get by. Why had he never felt self-conscious and ill at ease when eating in the kitchen with Ma and Pa? He decided it was because he was eating with Ma and Pa. He did not think or bother to wonder how he was acting. He was neither careful nor self-critical. He was not concerned about producing an effect. He felt composed, relaxed, and did all right. Mangan cured his self-consciousness by remembering how he had felt and how he acted when he was eating in the kitchen with Ma and Pa. Then he walked into a high-class dining room. He would imagine or pretend he was going to eat with Ma and Pa and act that way. Mangan also found that he could overcome his stage fright and self-consciousness when calling on big shot or in another social situation by saying to himself, I'm going to eat with Ma and Pa, conjuring up in his imagination how he felt and how he had acted, and then acting that way. So there's more to this, but just pay attention, man. It's right in your face. Okay, it says, I'm going to eat with Ma and Pa, conjuring up his imagination. Here it is again. Imagination, utilizing your imagination and the emotions it brings up. If you need to imagine, like this guy did, that he was eating with his parents to not feel so awkward eating in public, that's all it is. Imagining that you're there. This is what I mean by vivid imagination. Only vivid imagination can conjure up the emotions that allow you to act in the moment, how you're supposed to act. Okay, you can't just say I'm eating with Ma and Pa and done. Sit down and pretend. Put yourself there in your mind. Close your eyes if you have to. Learn to practice that imagination muscle. Okay, a lot of us, it gets beaten out of us during school. And then he says, in his book, The Knack of Selling Yourself, Mangan advised salesmen to use the I'm gonna go home to eat supper with Ma and Pa. I've been through this 1,000 times. Nothing new can happen here. Attitude in all sorts of new and strange situations. This attitude of being immune to strangers or strange situations, this total disregard for all unknown or unexpected, has a name. It is called poise. Poise is the deliberate shunting aside of all fears arising from new and uncontrollable circumstances. And as a little quip here from the person that helped write this book, update it later on, it says, Mangan was able to use the memory of the ease ease he felt eating with his parents or eating in his parents' kitchen or anything else he wanted to do in a more relaxed way, even activities that were supposedly unrelated. Logically, it makes sense that he would take a memory of eating with his parents and use that to eat with poise anywhere he went. But using the same memory of eating to trigger positive emotions in selling, speaking in public, in playing sports, or in other endeavors seemed like a stretch. With psychocybernetics, any positive memory of poise from any situation will do the trick for any other situation, no matter how different it may be. So you're starting to understand just how important the feeling is, evoking the feeling, okay? One way to shut down negative emotions is to evoke positive feeling. Nobody teaches this in school. It's insane. Okay. Then he says, conscience does make cowards of us all. Shakespeare's observation that conscience makes us cowards is echoed by many modern day psychiatrists and enlightened ministers. Conscience itself is a learned negative feedback mechanism having to do with morals and ethics. If the learned and stored data is correct concerning what is right and what is wrong, and if the feedback mechanism is not overly sensitive but realistic, the result is, just as with any other goal-striving situation, that we are relieved from the burden of having to decide constantly as to what is right and wrong. Consciousness steers us or guides us down the straight and narrow to the goal of correct, appropriate, and realistic behavior insofar as ethics and morals are concerned. Conscious works automatically and subconsciously as does any other feedback system. And it says a quote here, "Your conscience can fool you," by Dr. Harry Emerson. And it says, "Your conscience itself can be wrong. Your conscience depends on your own basic self-beliefs concerning right or wrong. If your basic beliefs are true, realistic, and sensible, conscience becomes a valuable ally in dealing with the real world and in sailing upon the ethical sea. It acts as a compass that keeps you out of trouble, just as, what does it say? Mariner's compass keeps them off the reefs." Yeah. It says, "But if your basic beliefs are themselves wrong, untrue, unrealistic, or nonsensible, these get your compass off true north, just as magnetic bits of metal can disrupt or disturb the compass of the mariner and guide him into trouble rather than away from it. Conscience can mean many things to many people. For instance, if you're brought up to believe, as some people are, that it is sinful to wear buttons on your clothes, your conscience will bother you when you do. If you're brought up to believe that cutting off another human's head, shrinking it, and hanging it on your wall is right, proper, and a sign of manhood, then you will feel guilty, unworthy, and undeserving if you haven't managed to shrink a head." Okay? So, this is a quip on basically imagine the rainbow community today and how, they're basically zealots to a cause, like diehard supporters. That's because their moral compass is, basically in that ideology. So to them, it feels right. It feels true. And anything countering their moral compass elicits strong negative emotions. Why do you think they freak out in public when their ideas are challenged? They can't even have a simple conversation. So that'll explain that for you. But we won't make this about that. Let's
can't think for themselves.
Yeah. Self-expression is not a moral issue. It says much mischief results from our taking a moral position on matters that are not basically moral matters at all. For example, self-expression or lack of it is not basically an ethical question, aside from the fact that it is our duty to use the talents that our Creator gave us. Yet self-expression may become morally wrong as far as your conscience is concerned if you were squelched, shut up, shamed, humiliated, or perhaps punished as a child for speaking up, expressing your ideas, showing off, yada yada. Such a child learns that it is wrong to express himself, to hold himself out as having any worthwhile ideas, or perhaps to speak at all. If a child is punished for showing anger, or shamed too much for showing fear, or perhaps made fun of for showing love, he learns that expressing his real feelings is wrong. Some children learn that it is sinful or wrong only to express the bad emotions, anger and fear. But when you inhibit bad emotions, you also inhibit the expression of good emotions. And the yardstick for judging emotions is not goodness or badness as such, but appropriateness and inappropriateness. It is appropriate for the man who meets with the bear on the trail to experience fear. It is appropriate to experience anger if there is a legitimate need to destroy an obstacle by sheer force and destructiveness. Properly directed and controlled, anger is an important element of courage. If every time a child comes up with an opinion, he is squelched and put in his place, he learns that it is right for him to be a nobody and wrong to want to be a somebody. Such distorted and unrealistic conscience does indeed make cowards of us all. We can become overly sensitive and become too carefully concerned with whether we have a a right to succeed in even a worthwhile endeavor. We become too carefully concerned about whether or not I deserve this. Many people inhibited by the wrong kind of conscience hold back or take a back seat in any kind of endeavor. Even in church activities, they secretly feel it would not be right for them to hold themselves out as a leader or presume to be somebody, or they're overly concerned with whether other people might think that they were showing off. How many people stop themselves in chasing anything because of those things he mentioned right there? Stage fright is a common and universal phenomenon. It becomes understandable when seen as excessive negative feedback coming from a misguided conscience. Stage fright is the fear that we will be punished for speaking up, expressing our own opinion, presuming to be somebody, or showing off. Things that most of us learned were wrong and punishable as children. Stage fright illustrates how universal is the suppression and inhibition of self-expression. And he has here a section that I highlighted. It says disinhibition, a long step in the opposite direction. It says if you're among the millions who suffer unhappiness and failure because of inhibition, you need to deliberately practice disinhibition. You need to practice being less careful, less concerned, less conscientious.
Well,
You need to practice speaking before you think instead of thinking before you speak. Acting without thinking instead of thinking or considering carefully before you act. So literally get out of your own head. That's basically what it's saying. Or for the young guys out there, send it, a full send for the young dudes. They'll understand what that means. Stop thinking about what your next move is. Stop thinking about how you'll be perceived. Stop wondering if it will succeed. Stop wondering whether it's the right decision. Just go. Just go. Just start. There's a funny saying for YouTube. It's like, how do I know what to record? What should I record? When do I start a channel? And the advice for everybody is literally just press record. Stop thinking about what you need to talk about. Stop thinking about what direction you need to take with whatever channel. Just hit record. Life is very much the same. Stop wondering about all the little details. Stop thinking about things that may not happen, obstacles that may be coming in the future. Just go. Start. Deal with it when it happens. Stop trying to map out the entire journey when you haven't even taken the first step. So many people make that mistake to be perfect, to avoid negative feedback, right? To avoid all the failure potentially that could happen. You will never succeed. You're guaranteeing failure the moment you start to think in that manner. That's too high of a mountain to climb in the beginning. You haven't even taken the first step and you're already thinking about the peak. How about you just think about the step in front of you first? Take the first 10 steps, then look forward for the next 50, then the next 100. Then you've already got halfway up the mountain. Before you know it, you're near the peak. Okay, you'll deal with shit along the way as they show up. If you're trying to plan out the entire route up the mountain with everything you could possibly come across, you'll never want to even go up the mountain at all. This is literally the metaphor for people's life, dude. This is what they go through every single day. When you want to do a weight loss journey, they look at someone that's ripped and they'll go, I can never be that ripped. Or they look at a guy that has a ton of muscles and you're skinny trying to gain weight. They'll go, I'll never be able to be that muscular, blah, blah. And they don't even bother trying. They give up before they start because they're trying to imagine the amount of work and the dedication, the years of eating clean and all this shit it took for that guy to get there. And I can't possibly do that. Why don't you start with day 1 in the gym and then do 1 week and then a month? And then we'll talk about month 2, month 3, month 4. Now you're 6 months in. Oh shit, you've been doing this for a year now? Wow, you're looking good. Damn, you're 2 years in. Fuck, you've transformed. I can't hardly recognize you. This is how it happens, guys. It's gradual. But people try to map this shit out from start to finish instead of starting whatsoever. It's insane. Let's see here. So it says how to tell whether you need disinhibition. The feedback. So this is good because it's everything we're talking about basically right now. So it says the feedback signals that can tell you whether you're off course because of too little inhibition are numerous and include: you continually get yourself into trouble because of overconfidence. You habitually rush in where angels fear to tread. You habitually find yourself in hot water because of impulsive, ill-considered actions. Says you have projects backfire on you because you always practice acting first and asking questions later. You can never admit you're wrong. You're a loud talker or a blabbermouth. If you have too little inhibition, you need to think more of consequences before acting. You need to stop acting like a bull in a china shop and plan your activities more carefully. However, the great majority of people tend to exhibit too much inhibition, and the signals of too much inhibition are also many. Here's the ones that everybody wants to hear. You are shy around strangers. You dread new and strange situations. You feel inadequate. You worry a lot, are anxious, overly concerned. You are nervous and feel self-conscious. You have nervous symptoms such as facial ties, blinking your eyes unnecessarily, tremor, difficulty in going to sleep. You feel ill at ease in social situations. You hold yourself back and continually take a back seat. These symptoms show that you have too much inhibition, that you are too careful in everything, or that you plan too much. You need to follow St. Paul's advice to the Ephesians, be careful in nothing. And then it has at the end here, it says it has a practice exercise. I'll let you guys look through that, basically telling you how to get to the point of disinhibition. But let's go into, finishing that out with all those things that I just mentioned for people that are inhibited. The shyness, the dread, the, strange situations making you nervous, worrying all the time, self-conscious, can't sleep is one of them too. That's so crazy. Imagine how much shit you have on your mind where you can't sleep. Imagine you're doing that to yourself. Like you're a worry wart. That's like the funny way that we call it. Thoughts? Does anybody ever, experience these things? I can't be the only one.
I don't know if you guys can hear me.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Sorry for my English, by the way. But I identify with what Karam said about the overplanning. It's like I constantly get new methods in my head and I start planning them, but I never commit. And it's because I'm scared, just like Karam said. But what I'm scared of is not that I fail, is that I'm committing to the wrong path. So like, since I stay most of the time in my head and I don't, and I'm self-planning, right? So I'm not bouncing ideas on other people. So I'm scared that I'm, how can I say it, biased to my own opinion. And then I'm scared to commit to the wrong path because it's only my ideas. So yeah, that's what I'm scared.
That's an interesting part of your conscious right there, your moral programming that we were talking about earlier, that you feel it's wrong, right? And like you have to dive into the why it feels wrong to you. Where does that stem from? Why does your path feel incorrect somehow or another in your mind? That's what's stopping you. Who told you that? Like Karam could have said, like, was it triggered by your father? What would your parents think? Is that the emotion that you're eliciting? Like, is that what you're thinking about? Like, what would friends think? Family think? The family think?
Yeah.
Does that feel wrong to you? And that's how
it's because
go ahead.
It's because my family invested money in my education, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm scared of like not being able to pay them off or to being able to retire them in a near future. So I'm constantly like changing paths, and then I don't commit to anything, and I stand in the same place.
Wow. You need to imagine that you took care of your parents perfectly. Write down what would be the perfect scenario of you taking care of your parents. How would you feel that you finally got them taken care of in just the bestest way? And really, that's what you need to start imagining, because right now you're imagining you're failing. So you need to start imagining you succeed and it's all done. What's that like? What's it look like? What's it feel like? And then drench yourself in those feelings, hypnotize yourself, brainwash yourself that you're the guy who took care of his parents. And then for fun, start noticing other men who took care of their parents. Like Bo's taking care of his parents with his house. So you're in good contact with the man who's doing what you want to do. And maybe he's one of your top 5 people that influences you. You could find other people that have a beautiful story of how they took care of their parents. And you got to say to yourself, that's me. That's me. That's me. Yes, I love these guys. I'm like that too. That's me. And just starts, because Ben Franklin said, worry is the misuse of the imagination, right? And so you're misusing your imagination. And we need reminders. I need to be reminded of that because I worry, even though I know this.